I'm joined by each and every member of the Victorian Parliamentary Labor Party leadership team to make some very important announcements about steps that I have taken this morning. At just after 9 a.m. this morning, I met with Adem Somyurek and I informed him that I would be writing to the Governor to terminate his commission as a minister, to essentially sack him from my ministry. That letter was sent moments later and the Governor has accepted that advice, and Mr Somyurek is no longer a Minister of the Crown. I also informed him that it was my intention to write to the National Executive via the National Secretary of the Australian Labor Party and seek from them a termination of Mr Somyurek's membership of the Australian Labor Party. That letter has been sent, and it is my expectation that the National Executive will agree to terminate Mr Somyurek's membership of the Australian Labor Party. I also want to be very clear with you that I now regard Mr Somyurek as no longer a member of the Victorian Parliamentary Labor Party, no longer a member of my team, my caucus, my government. I have also asked the Attorney-General to refer all of these matters, as canvassed last night on the television and in various newspaper reports today, to both Victoria Police and to IBAC. And the Attorney-General has written in those terms. Those referrals have been made. That's what has been done this morning. I want to make it very clear to you, this government is about working hard every single day for the people of Victoria. And if you don't do that, or if you're not prepared to make that commitment, then you are no longer a member of my government. What Mr Somyurek said, what Mr Somyurek has done, so his conduct and his comments are completely deplorable, they are shameful, and it is on that basis that there is no place in my government for him. There is no place in my team for him. And that is what I informed him this morning. I want to be very clear with each and every one of you, and through you, Victorians. Mr Somyurek was not offered an opportunity to resign. He's not worthy of an opportunity to resign. He was sacked, and that is the fact of the matter. Any statements to the contrary are simply false. Now, in terms of comments particularly in relation to my good friend and colleague, Gabrielle Williams, the Minister for Women, the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs and the Minister for the Prevention of Family Violence, I've spoken to Gab a number of times since last night's TV program, and I have reassured her of the support that I've always provided to her, the regard I've always had for her, and the fact that the things that were said about her are simply unacceptable, wicked comments, and I simply will not tolerate. I will not tolerate those sorts of comments or attitudes from any member of my team. Indeed, no Victorian should be tolerated if they hold those sorts of views about women and against women. In relation to Ministers Kairouz and Scott, I've had a conversation with them today, and I have sought from them an assurance that they have at all times behaved appropriately. They have provided me with that assurance, and I would of course make the point that these matters are now the subject of a referral, an appropriate referral, to both Victoria Police and the Independent Broad-Based Anti-Corruption Commission. Those inquiries will run their course. If and when they make adverse findings, if and when those frank and free inquiries are run, if they make findings, we will deal with those at the appropriate time. Based on the assurances provided by those two ministers, they will continue in their duties, and we will await the conclusion of appropriate investigations by Victoria Police and IBAC, and I am absolutely confident that both those bodies have the resources, the will, to do that job properly and without fear or favour. Again, before we take questions, I just want to make it very clear to you there is no place for these views, there is no place for this conduct. Mr Somyurek has been sacked from my ministry, my government, my team, and it is my expectation that he will be terminated as a member of the Australian Labor Party. These matters have been referred to the relevant authorities, and I believe that is the appropriate step to take. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. And just before I will take all your questions, so let's just do this one at a time, as we always do. That'll be the best way to get through everything.
What do you make of the allegation that ministerial and or electorate staff were used for party purposes, whether it was branch stacking or
that would be unacceptable, but that is now one of the matters, I'm sure, that Victoria Police and the IBAC will look at closely.
What about all the staff members implicated?
IBAC and Victoria Police will look at those matters. That's the appropriate thing to do. They will make their inquiries, they'll make their judgments, they'll have findings, they'll provide those, they'll be public at the appropriate time, and we'll respond to that once those investigations are finished.
Should they be stood down during that period of investigation?
Well, again, the key point here is that there are claims that have been made. I do not want to cut across the work that those two bodies have to do. I've not referred it there for any other reason than these are serious matters and they need to be investigated, not by a colleague, not by me. They should be investigated by Victoria Police. They should be investigated by IBAC, and I'm confident that they will be. And that'll be done at arm's length from the Victorian Government, without fear or favour, and I think that is the most appropriate way to go.
Did you have any knowledge of any of this?
defence? What did he say in his
He
defence?
offered no defence of his actions. It was not a meeting where I was having a debate or a discussion with him. I was simply doing him the courtesy of informing him in person of the decisions that I had taken. Nothing he could have said, nothing he could have done would have deterred me from the decisions I had made. I'd made them. I was simply giving him the courtesy of him learning from me what I was about to do, and that is essentially to end his career as a minister and end his career as a member of the Australian Labor Party and therefore a member of my government.
Did you speak with him last night?
Sorry?
Did you speak with him last night? What did you think when you watched 60 Minutes?
I think that program speaks for itself, and I think the answer to your question is I thought so little of his conduct and his comments that I sacked him at 9 a.m.
When did you first become aware of the allegations that aired last night?
when I watched the program.
It was a massive surprise to you, though. I mean, Adem Somyurek has been dismissed from your cabinet before. There's been allegations of branch sacking before. You must have known at some level that this was happening.
What I'd say to you is I don't think any fair-minded person can watch that program and not be shocked. That is my answer. The conduct, the commentary is simply unacceptable to me. I won't tolerate that, and that's exactly why I've made the decisions I made today.
Did he clearly not character to Cabinet twice? What's your level of culpability?
Well, again, people can make their own judgments about that.
Did he clearly not learn his lesson though after you
It's
sacked
not-
him the first time?
Simon, with the greatest of respect, I understand why you would want me to provide you with opinions. I've given you a pretty firm, pretty frank assessment of my views of that person. I don't intend to go into any further
Clearly
detail.
he hasn't learned the error of his ways if you brought him back into cabinet.
Well,
I mean,
again,
he's gone
I think-
allegedly
well,
branch stacked again.
I think my actions today should leave you and all Victorians in no doubt about my views on Mr Somyurek's conduct and his commentary. There's not much more I could do other than take that action, which is to sack him from the ministry, terminate his membership of the Australian Labor Party, and essentially refer all of this conduct to Victoria Police and IBAC.
Encourage him to leave the Parliament. He's no longer a member of the ALP.
Which I would not seek to speak to a member of Parliament about whether they should stay or go. That is, I think that can border on being inappropriate, frankly. He'll need to make his own judgments, but he won't be sitting in the caucus because he won't be a member of the party. His future as a legislative councillor is entirely a matter for him.
You encourage the Victorian Labor Party to conduct an investigation of membership. You talk about IBAC and police, but
Sure.
branch stacking is nothing new in the Labor Party. Will you actually ensure that there is a root and branch review of what's actually going on with membership?
What I'd say to you is this. I've had numerous conversations with federal leader Anthony Albanese today, last night, and we'll have more to say about those matters soon. Today's not a day for that, but we'll have more to say about that soon.
So how are you going to sort out the 4,000 branch members that have had their membership paid for?
As I said to you, there have been a number of allegations made. There's conduct that is clear from watching that show, and reports thereafter, and admissions made by various people. I will have more to say about those matters. As I said, I've had a couple of conversations, 3 or 4 conversations now with Albo. We both take these matters very seriously, and I'll have more to say about that soon.
Is sacking one
How is this
person-
level of branch sacking still happening in the Labor Party, given everything that's happened in recent years, not only here but New South Wales? How is this still happening on this level with this many people knowing about it?
Well, again, I'll have more to say about steps that need to be taken in my judgment and the judgment of the federal leader to deal with some of these issues. That's not for today. I will make those announcements in due course.
On your watch, how does this reflect on you?
Again, I'm not here to be a commentator. I'm talking about what I've done today and why. I'll leave it to others to make their own judgments about that. But today, I want to be very clear. This government is about delivering on our promises and working hard for every single Victorian. If that's not your focus, then you are not a member of my team anymore. And that's what Mr. Somyurek has learnt at 9 a.m. this morning.
Was last night the first time you had heard the substance of these allegations?
Yes.
You'd not heard whispers, rumours, with this level of activity happening? You'd not heard
I just go
anything?
back to the original point I made. I don't think any fair-minded person could watch that program last night and not be shocked at what was depicted.
We have Minister Marlene Kairos on tape, deep in the weeds of grant stacking. We have Robin Scott's elected staffers admitting that Robin knows about all of these grant stacking, grant stacking operations. Is it not appropriate to stand down those two ministers?
No, the appropriate thing is to let Victoria Police and IBAC, without fear or favour, at complete arm's length from the government, conduct inquiries as they see fit, and we will await those inquiries. This is essentially referring these matters, these broader matters, to law enforcement and to the Anti-Corruption Commission. That is the most appropriate step.
You just said that if people don't want to work for the good of Victoria, they have no place in the team. Somyurek admits on tape that Marlene Kairos thinks her portfolio is stupid. It's a lightweight portfolio. It doesn't mean anything. It was only created to make it look like Labor was interested in the suburbs.
I understand why I asked the question, Samara. I've seen the program. I'm aware of those claims and comments. I've sought assurances from both those individuals that they've acted appropriately at all times. They've given me those assurances. This is now a matter. This is now a matter appropriately, I think, for Victoria Police and for IBAC, and we will await the findings that they come down with, and we will respond accordingly.
How do you think it reflects on the government that a senior, cabinet minister and the Minister for Suburban Development thinks her portfolio is just completely useless and a made-up portfolio?
Well, again, I'm not going to be a commentator. I don't agree with that assessment.
That's what they're saying. So you
Well,
don't,
that's
need
one
to agree
person
with
saying
the
something.
assessment. This is what they are saying.
Well, one person saying this about somebody else. Again, I've asked the minister whether she's acted appropriately at all times. She's guaranteed me that she has.
And how
And
does she
on that,
guarantee that?
well, I've asked the question and she's provided an answer. And now it'll be.
Why would you
And now it'll be.
Why would you believe Minister Marlene Kairos, considering her record and her involvement with, Adem Somyurek, who clearly has a very, very patchy record?
Okay, well, I don't know that there's a question in there. I think there's some commentary, and that's fine. That's part of your job. I'm not here to be a commentator. I'm here to tell you what I've done, why I've done it, and I would just. It is not for nothing. It is no small thing to refer all of these matters, to Victoria Police and to IBAC, and we will, once they do their work, we will see what comes of that, and we will have more to say at that time.
You've gutted IBAC in recent years. Do you have the confidence
Sorry,
that
I didn't hear the first bit.
you have gutted IBAC in recent years? Do you think IBAC has the appropriate powers and funding to be able to fully investigate everything that's going on?
I don't accept your characterisation of the position that IBAC finds it in. I don't accept that either.
Do you think IBAC has the appropriate powers
I do.
and funding to be able to fully investigate?
Yes.
Premier,
And I'll just make the point, I have complete confidence that they will do that work without fear or favour. That is their role, that is their charter, and I'm completely confident that they will.
What's the one thing that Minister Kairos has achieved for the suburbs in her role as Minister?
The suburban development portfolio and our investment in suburban schools, suburban rail, suburban hospitals, suburban employment. The list goes on and on. The role that the minister plays is to make sure that the suburbs has a strong voice at the cabinet table. There are a number of very localised and smaller programs that she administers directly, grants and the like. There's an outer suburban growth fund. There are numerous things that she's achieved, and she'll continue working hard to achieve even more.
Well, it's the health minister, the education minister, the transport infrastructures minister's role to be able to advocate for, funding for schools, funding for hospitals, for funding for rail. Why do you need to pay a cabinet minister almost $300,000 a year to be able to give, some growth area infrastructure?
Sure. So, Mayor, I'm not here to have an argument, but the fact of the matter is that she serves without salary for those portfolio. She only gets paid for one job. She is the Minister for Consumer Affairs, the Minister for Gaming and Liquor, and she's the Minister for Suburban Development. You're not paid for each of those portfolios. She does a...
Staffers for that.
Sorry?
She has taxpayer-funded political advisors for that portfolio.
She has a ministerial staff.
Nick McLennan, who's clearly grandstacking.
She has a ministerial staff, and as every minister does. All of these matters, as I said, all these matters have been referred to Victoria Police and to IBAC, and they will run their investigations without fear or favour, at arm's length from the government, and they will make whatever findings they believe are appropriate, and we will respond to those at that time.
Premier, have you ever...
Lundy and then Simon. Lundy.
Why is it appropriate they continue to sit around the cabinet table while they're being investigated by IBAC?
Well, they've provided me with an assurance as to their conduct. I think it is appropriate that IBAC and Victoria Police look at all of these matters, and on that basis they remain ministers, and they will work hard every day for the people of our state.
Premier, have you...
Sorry, Simon.
Premier, have you ever branch stacked yourself?
I follow the party's rules. I'm the leader of the party, and I don't think I've got much more to add to that.
So
No.
Do you believe
Tell
it
us
happens
what
at all?
Minister Robin Scott and Marlene Kairos told you when they were giving those reassurances. What did they promise?
Just as I indicated to you, I sought an assurance from them that they had behaved. I sought an assurance from them that they had acted appropriately, and they confirmed for me that they had acted appropriately at all times.
And you believe them? That's good enough for
That
you?
wasn't a 10-second conversation. What did they say?
It was a fairly brief conversation, and they confirmed for me. If you need a quote, here is the quote. I've acted appropriately at all times.
And you believe them at their word despite everything else you hear?
And Victoria Police and IBAC will look at all of the matters that were canvassed in the program last night and canvassed in the coverage today.
Will that go wider
If you believe them,
I've answered your question.
Will that go wider to branch stacking in any political party, not just Labor? There's allegations the Liberals have also done. Will you ask IBAC to look into branch stacking in the Victorian political system?
IBAC have an act, and they administer their functions under that act. Victoria Police obviously deal with crimes or the potential criminal activity. Where their investigations take them, how they conduct them is entirely a matter for them.
You can refer that though. You can take a stand and say, let's
Well,
let's call the line here. Stop branch stacking.
Well, I'm not here. Again, with the greatest of respect, I'm not here to make political points today. I'm here to tell you what I've done and why I've done it. Other political parties are matters for others.
Will
Why
you
don't
refer
Adem,
the
Somyurek,
office
Mullen,
use of... You go, Samantha.
have the officers, we're asking the same question, have the officers of Adem Somyurek, Mullen Kairos and Robin Scott been secured?
No. Well, sorry, I should say Minister Somyurek will not be going back to his office. He's no longer a minister. As for the other two ministers, they are continuing their work based on the assurances they've given me, and all of these matters have appropriately been referred to Victoria Police and IBAC.
So
So
you
you've
lost all these
referred those
entitlements?
ministers to Victoria Police and to IBAC, but they're allowed to go into their offices and potentially
No.
maybe destroy evidence?
Oh, well, I'm not going to deal with the sort of hypothetical you're putting to me. That's a serious claim. Well, what's been referred to Victoria Police and IBAC is all of the issues, all of them, that were canvassed in the show last night and in coverage since.
Premier,
Why
Anthony
can't the
Byrne's
ministers
office,
and-
well, Anthony Byrne's involvement looks like in the vision that Anthony Byrne's office is involved. Will that be part of the referral to Victoria Police and IBAC?
All the issues that were canvassed in the program or arising from the program, and that the kind of boundary to that will not be determined by me, Rich. That'll be a matter for IBAC and a matter for Victoria Police.
They have jurisdiction into a federal entity's office.
To tell you the truth, I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm pretty sure Victoria Police would. As for IBAC, again, it's been referred to both, and I'd be confident that they have both the powers and resources, the will, and they are at arm's length from the government, and I think that's the appropriate step to take.
In other circumstances, it's almost inconceivable that a minister who's under investigation by Vicpol or IBAC, much less both, would not stand down from cabinet. But now you've got two, they're not standing down.
I think that, based on the assurances that have been provided to me, and the fact that there are claims, there will then be a process. Those claims will be tested. There'll be an investigation conducted, not by me. That would not be appropriate. investigation will be conducted by Victoria Police and IBAC, and they will make findings if they choose to, and they will do that in their own time, at arm's length from the Victorian Government.
How have I got to have faith in that when you've got people in Cabinet under investigation who are going to be making
Well,
decisions every
again,
week in Cabinet?
the alternative is for all of us to essentially conduct those investigations on behalf of Victoria Police and IBAC, and I just don't think that's appropriate.
There is a way you could ask these people to step aside at least from their roles while the investigation is underway. How can Victorians have faith that these
Well, I think
ministers doing their jobs with these serious corruption allegations hanging over?
well, Victorians can have confidence that Victoria Police and IBAC will look at these matters thoroughly, all of them. And in the meantime, those ministers will work very hard to deliver on the commitments that we've made, working hard every day to make sure that Victoria has jobs, prosperity and a sense of security for the future.
Will you release the referral to IBAC and Victoria Police? Will you release the correspondence, the letter that you sent?
That's happy to.
Will the ministers cooperate with IBAC and Victoria Police?
Every Victorian should cooperate with Victoria Police and IBAC.
Well, those ministers, famously they did it during red shirts.
I don't accept that characterisation. I think that might be said, but I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that is right at all. It will be my expectation that every single Victorian, including anybody involved in these matters, would cooperate with Victoria Police and/or IBAC.
Any decisions made by Adem Somyurek in his term as Minister for Local Government, the board changes to cabinet must be reviewed?
No, the minister has taken forward positions that have been endorsed by Cabinet. He's made a number of different decisions pursuant to his role as a minister. I'm not aware of any reason to go back over those or to be concerned about those. His conduct and his commentary has seen him sacked from the ministry this morning. That is appropriate. What's more, he's no longer a member of the Parliamentary Labor Party, and he will soon no longer be a member of the Australian Labor Party. They're the steps I've taken. They're the appropriate steps, I think, in this case.
Will you go to the next election as President?
I've always said that I have a lot more to do, a lot more to get done. That's what I've done these last 5.5 years. I've made commitments and I've worked worked every day as hard as I possibly can to get things done. And I've still got a lot more that I have to do.
So yes.
Yes. My position hasn't changed.
Somyurek was reported.
Much as some might like me to, but my position has not changed. There's a lot more to do, a lot more to build, a lot more to get done, and I'll be there leading the team to do it.
Somyurek was reported saying, as I'm sure you're aware, that you would be going.
I am.
How do you think he?
Well, I'm not sure on what basis he made that claim.
Do you think there's an issue with...
Because it's wrong.
Is there a bigger issue within Victorian Labor, given what we've seen, red shirts and now this misuse of taxpayers' money, a lack of respect for taxpayers and a lack of respect for the people who they're supposed to represent?
I don't believe so, but I do think there are comments and conduct by Mr. Somyurek that are completely unacceptable, and it's on that basis that he has been terminated. He's been sacked today, not just from my ministry, but from the Parliamentary Party and from the Australian Labor Party.
Mr. Somyurek's held 2/3 of the votes in your party room. Does this really end by just sacking him? There are, 2/3 of your party room was loyal to him.
Well, again, they are judgments, they're claims that are made by various people, one of whom is no longer a member of the Australian Labor Party. So I'll leave others to make their judgments. What every member of my team is focused on and will continue to be focused on is delivering on the promises that we have made.
Are you confident that you do have the support of your caucus when Somyurek says Gavin Jennings, one of your closest factional and tactical allies, apparently said behind your back that was bagging the crap out of you, say, the C word, said they hate Andrews, they say Daniel is a prick, saying we don't trust him. Do you believe that you do have the support of your caucus?
I don't think that's a relevant question, frankly. That's just a joke. If people want to put the record of leadership that I have delivered and the unity of my team against the claims made by somebody who's no longer a member of that team, well, that you're fine to do that if you choose to. I wouldn't take that comment or that question seriously, frankly. I lead a strong team, and if you want to have a look at the performance of our government, the team I've led during bushfires, the worst in our state's history. If you want to look at the performance of our team, which I've been proud and privileged to lead during the global pandemic, then you can make your own judgments.
because it was made public, but it is clear that a number of people, many people inside the ALP knew his role, knew what was going on, knew the impact on the organisation.
Sure, I
How
understand the
rotten
question.
is the ALP in Victoria?
I understand the question, and what I'd say to you is no fair-minded Victorian who watched that show last night would not be shocked at what they saw. That is the best way and the most complete way to answer your question, and I've taken the action that is appropriate today.
But you must have known on some level that at least
I've indicated
some of
to you
this
no.
was going on.
I've indicated to you no. Everyone watching that show last night, including Mr. Somyurek himself, I'm sure, was shocked at the contents of that program.
But no one's shocked at branch stacking and no one's shocked at robust language being used in political parties. So isn't the offence here getting caught on camera doing it?
No, the conduct is appalling and it is unacceptable and it will not be tolerated, and I've taken action this morning to deal with that.
Why did you bring him back in 2018?
Well, the caucus makes judgments about who will be in the ministry. That is a perfectly appropriate thing. I have an announcement to make which I'll deal with at the end of questions, but about who will replace Mr. Somyurek. Again, he has been terminated today and others can reflect on his time as a minister. I can't change the fact that he rejoined the Cabinet 18 months ago. Rich, you are the commentator, not me. I'm not going to pretend that I can get a do-over on that. I don't. That decision was made. You can reflect and others can reflect on his time as a ministry. What I've done today, and for most of last night, was reflect on his position, and it was very clear to me that it was untenable. And I again make it really clear, because I wouldn't want this to be in any way confusing. He was not afforded an opportunity to resign because he didn't deserve an opportunity to resign. He was sacked. Be really clear about that.
This goes back to the point, though. He's trying to build a political power base for alleged branch stacking. Doesn't this go to the point where maybe the factionalism system is not working and it's giving you results like this? It's giving
Well, I suppose let's go. Well, I'll come to
This is why you need
I'll come to his
a
replacement, which I have determined, and it'll be one that is fully supported by everybody across the whole team in a moment. But I've spoken with Anthony. There will be more that we need to say about this. There'll be more that we need to do about this. Today is not that day. Well, as I've said, I've spoken with the federal leader and I will have more to say about the steps that we will take together to make sure that the Victorian branch of the Australian Labor Party is the best that it can possibly be. That is what people expect, including me.
Because it is the case, is it not, that these things have been going on under the nose of head office and the Victorian branch through successive officials for years now?
Well, again, I'll let you make your own judgments about those matters and put whatever editorial commentary you want. That's absolutely fine. What I'm saying to you is that I will have more to say quite soon about how we intend to deal with this, and that is a party matter. Today is about other important responsibilities that I have and an obligation that I have to deal with someone who is so out of step in their commentary and their conduct with the standards that I expect, the standards that my team expects, and the standard that I think the vast majority of Victorians expect.
This time yesterday, he would have had your entire trust. Is that embarrassing to you that he's deceived you?
I'll leave others to make their judgments on that. What I'm saying to you is no Victorian could be anything other than shocked at watching that program last night, as I was.
This time yesterday,
And I have
you
taken
your
and
entire
I have taken action this morning, the clearest action that I can possibly take to terminate him as a minister. Well, again, I'm not looking backwards. I'm telling you what I've done today. Well, I think I've answered your question.
I'm not sure you have.
Well,
I'm just saying,
I've answered your question.
If last night was a complete revelation to you, this time yesterday you would have stood here and said the party's completely unified. He has my entire trust.
Again, I think I've answered your question.
The Labor Party, they've conducted several inquiries into branch stacking, but most of them have been factionally aligned and nothing has been done. Would he support an independent inquiry, one that's not run by a Labor member?
What I will commit to is making further announcements with the federal leader about how we will deal with those issues. That is not for today. It won't be too far off, but we will make those announcements appropriately. And at that point, you won't need to ask those sorts of questions. It'll be really clear to you what we are doing.
Failed before those several times to reform the ALP.
Sorry?
People have tried and failed on several occasions before, at the federal level in particular, to reform the ALP because these allegations keep coming up. They never seem to succeed, Premier. How is this still happening, and why will your review be more successful?
Oh, I'm not necessarily announcing a review. I'll be announcing a series of steps that will deal with these issues. That's not for today, though. I will make those announcements in due course. As I said, I've had a couple of conversations with Anthony as the federal leader, and we'll have more to say once we're ready to do that. Today was about making it really clear to you and through you to the community that I won't tolerate these sort of comments, this sort of conduct, and I won't hesitate to act, and that's exactly what I've done in terminating his commission, advising the governor, so essentially sacking him as a minister, and taking steps to make sure he's no longer a member of the Australian Labor Party or a member of the Labor caucus.
Will you be accepting his vote in the upper house and actively lobbying?
Whether he's a member of the upper house and how he casts his votes, if he is still a member of the upper house, is entirely a matter for him.
But if he remains in that house, and it is
No, I've been asked this question.
There are numbers there that are quite precarious, and you've got to
each
try and
member,
get each one of them.
Sure,
Will you be actively seeking him out on legislation?
Every single member of the upper house and the lower house, particularly as it relates to crossbenchers, have to make their own judgments. And if he serves as a crossbencher in the upper house of the Victorian Parliament, he'll have to make his own judgments, and he'll have to be accountable for the judgments that he makes. That's entirely a matter for him. Simon, I've just sacked the bloke. I don't think I'm going to be sitting down doing any deals with him. Be really clear about that. He can vote as he sees fit, if he is still a member of the Parliament. That's a matter for him also.
How concerned are you that police and High-back investigation, how far would you sort of cast the net? Will it be an investigation into Somyurek, Kaibarus and Scott and then electoral staffers?
Samaya, I want to be really clear with you. This is not a matter. The scope of this will not be determined by me. The entirety of these issues have been referred by the Attorney General to IBAC and to Victoria Police. What they look at, how they do it, the scope or otherwise, all of those issues, they're not determined by members of the government. They will be determined appropriately at complete arm's length from the government by the Anti-Corruption Commission and by Victoria Police. That, I think, is the way you would want this to go. That's certainly the way I want it to be done, without fear or favour.
Currently fully operational.
Ministerial staffers are involved.
So what was the IBAC question?
Is it currently fully operational? Obviously Victorians are working from home. Does IBAC have the capacity?
I understand so, yeah.
Do you know how
I think we're all making adjustments because of the pandemic, but I understand that they're fully able to do their work, and I wouldn't think Victoria Police was any different.
Do you know how many ministerial and parliamentary staffers may be involved in all of this?
That's why this matter's been referred to Victoria Police and to IBAC to answer those very questions, Samaya.
How concerned are you that a trusted member of your team, a minister, has been undermining the party and you've been ignorant of it?
As I said to you, his conduct is appalling. It is completely unacceptable to me, and that's why he was sacked at 9 a.m. this morning.
I'm asking about your ignorance of that behaviour. How
Well,
concerned are you that it was happening and you had no idea?
So concerned about his comments and conduct that he was terminated at 9 o'clock this morning. I don't think I can answer it any clearer than that. That's the view I took of his conduct and comments. I terminated his commission as a minister.
What did he say to you in that meeting?
It was a very short meeting. I don't think he said much at all.
What did he say though?
He did not say very much at all, and it's not my habit to be relaying private discussions. What I indicated, it wasn't really a discussion at all, actually. He was in the office for a very short time because the only purpose of the meeting was for me to inform him in person, because I think that's the appropriate thing to do, of the steps I was about to take. I then, after literally only a few minutes, he left. And the letters were sent. The action that I'd foreshadowed was taken. It was, you'd barely call it a discussion.
Premier, when you brought Adem Somyurek back into Cabinet a year and a half ago, you said that he's a better man than he has ever been, and that if you weren't confident of that, then he wouldn't be back. I guess, what do you make of that now, and what gave you that confidence?
We all know the circumstances of his first stint as a minister and the circumstances in which they came to an end. It was my judgment, and I think the judgment of many others, that he had worked hard to make the case that he would be a minister that worked hard for all Victorians. Clearly, that judgment was wrong, and on that basis, he has been terminated as a minister and will soon no longer even be a member of the Australian Labor Party. On your question you're about to ask, I don't look back on these things. I'm very much focused on the future, but I'm also focused on doing what has to be done, and the steps I took this morning were the appropriate steps to take.
So that decision to bring him back into the ministry had nothing to do with the factional power that he wielded within the Labor Party?
Well, there are a number of candidates always that put themselves forward. If they have support, then they are a candidate that has significant support, then decisions are made. People can reflect on how good or bad a judgment that was. I'm not looking back at that, because you don't get a do-over. What you get, though, is one chance when you're confronted with the sort of information that was provided last night to take swift and decisive action, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not seeking your praise or anybody else's praise for doing that. I've done what I think is the appropriate thing to do. I can't think of any other alternative.
Was he your friend?
I have many colleagues. I have...
Yeah, but was he a mate?
I wouldn't describe him in those terms.
Are you glad to see the back of him?
I wouldn't describe him in those terms, Simon. Do we have dinner together? Have I been to his house? No. Has he been to mine? No. So that's what I'd say, mate. Sit down and have a beer with him? No. He's a colleague. I'm not for a moment. Don't read that as me just wanting to distance myself from the relationship that we previously had. I'm not doing that at all, but I wouldn't describe him in those terms.
Are you glad to see the back of him? This scandal aside, was this an opportunity to get rid of someone who potentially been problematic in the factional system?
No, I wouldn't see it in those terms at all. I've dealt with this matter on its merits, or lack thereof, I should probably say.
Would have he still been sacked if he didn't make those comments about the colleagues?
Well, he did make those comments, so...
He hadn't.
Oh, well, again, that's not particularly relevant. I think that his comments and his conduct left me very clear on the fact that he had to go, and that's why he went at 9 a.m. this morning, not as a resignation. He was not afforded the opportunity to resign. He was terminated at 9 o'clock.
What do you make of him trying to spin that? After leaving your office, he puts out a statement saying, "I've resigned."
My job is to make sure that you have an accurate understanding of what occurred, and he can speak to his own statement. I had no part in the production of that statement. I'm just giving you the facts.
But the fact that he's out there, he's saying, "I've gone into your
well,
office."
you can make your own judgments about that. I think they're fairly obvious.
How would you characterise his performance as minister until you sacked him? Because it seems to me he was spending so much time branch stacking, it barely left any time for being a minister.
Look, I think that people can fairly level criticism at him for his performance now it's clear the sort of conduct that he was up to. I won't go any further than that. I understand why you asked the question. It's a fair and legitimate question, but let's not forget the fact that these issues are now the subject of a proper arm's length from government inquiry by IBAC and Victoria Police, and I really don't think it would be in anyone's interests, let alone due process and proper accountability for me certainly, to be commenting any further than that.
What's the look about?
Are you happy with him?
Well, I'm indicating to you that, Laurel, I was so impressed with his performance, I have ended his career this morning. I think that gives you a really clear impression of the standards that I set and uphold.
Is it really tenable to have the minister in charge of Crown Casino, liquor licensing and gambling, being investigated by IBAC and Victoria Police while still serving in that role?
We're kind of back where we were half an hour ago, I think, and that's fine. You can ask. You're perfectly entitled to ask the question. What I'm saying to you is that Victoria Police and IBAC will look at all of the issues that were raised, all of the issues that they deem relevant, coming out of last night's program, and indeed coverage since. And based on assurances that both ministers have provided to me, I am confident that is the best way to go. And IBAC and VicPol will look at these matters fearlessly. They will do their job. I have complete confidence they'll do their job properly.
Is Claire Burns' position as State Secretary secure given that she was effectively put into that position by Adem Somyurek?
I don't accept your characterisation of her promotion and elevation to that role. She's an outstanding person doing an outstanding job.
Caruth has boasted that she's hand in glove with Somyurek. Does that not concern you?
Again, I'm not going to be a commentator on what one person said about another. That's not really my role.
Can I just ask Ms Symes, as the leader of the government in the upper house and also a leading woman in the cabinet, what did you make of the comments that you heard last night from Adem Somyurek about Gabrielle Williams?
I was appalled by the comments from Mr Somyurek last night and immediately reached out to Minister Williams and offered support, as did my colleague Minister Makakos. We have a really strong female caucus. We're very supportive of one another and we'll all get around Gabrielle.
Is this problem wider about Labor culture?
Absolutely not. I feel incredibly numb and sad today because this behaviour is not indicative of the Labor Party. It's not the reason I'm in the Labor Party. As the Premier has said, you don't do this job if you're interested in anyone, if you're interested in yourself. You do it because you want to bring about good outcomes for Victorians. And he's made swift, decisive action today to sack Minister Somyurek. It's the right decision. And the rest of us hopefully can get focused on our job.
When you reached out to Gabrielle Williams, what did she say to you? And how was she?
Look, I'm sure Gabrielle would like to make her own comments, but it's fair to say that she's shaken, and as I said, we'll support her.
You now have 12 crossbenchers to deal with instead of 11. Does that increase the degree of difficulty for you in trying to get legislation through?
The upper house is always a complex place, James. I'll continue to do my job with that, regardless of who I need to deal with.
We can certainly all agree on that today, I'm sure. I have an announcement to make if I can. I have telephoned and asked Danny Pearson, the member for Essendon and my parliamentary secretary, to join the Cabinet as the Minister for Local Government and Small Business. He has accepted that offer and he will soon be sworn in over video link, I think, with Her Excellency the Governor. Those portfolios are critically important. Having a full complement in the Cabinet room is critically important, and I am confident that Danny will do an outstanding job, not only as a great servant of his community, but as a fantastic minister.
Will someone else be appointed to take over as parliamentary secretary?
At some point, yes, Rachel, but I haven't made that decision yet.
And will their role include the sort of role in terms of having a role in negotiating the Belt and Road Agreement?
They'll have many
Danny
different.
did?
They'll have many different responsibilities. Those matters have not been settled because often tasks are allocated based on a person's individual skills, their life experience, and the person helps to shape that job.
So is it possible that Danny will continue that role in his new role then?
No, he'll have a full-time job making sure that he administers all of his responsibilities in local government and small business. And I'll make the point. We've had bushfires this year. We still are in the middle of a global pandemic, a wildly infectious disease that has no vaccine or cure. There's been a massive economic shock. The small business portfolio is very important to me, given my own family background, and just the fact of the matter, we need to get out there and support those who are doing it really tough. And I think Danny will do an outstanding job as part of our economic team, as part of the Cabinet, working hard every day to deliver on our promises and make sure that our plan for jobs and its part in the national plan for jobs sees Victoria stronger than ever.
Premier Minister, what did Minister Somyurek achieve?
There are many different policy proposals, many different election commitments that he has been responsible for. Again, I'll leave it to others to reflect on his ministerial career. I think I've made it pretty clear to you how I rank it.
Earlier this year, when he sacked 2 Victorian councils, in his private conversations, he was essentially joking about it, saying, in between sacking council, I'll be sacking federal MP Julian Hill.
I saw those comments.
Does that kind of commentary sort of worry you, considering how lightly it seems he took his responsibility to sack 2 councils?
People can make their own judgments about Mr Somyurek's comments. I certainly have, and I've acted without hesitation today. His comments in relation to Gabrielle Williams, his comments in relation to Julian Hill, his comments in relation to many different people are completely unacceptable.
What about his comments towards members of the LGBTI community? He's
completely unacceptable.
Remarks.
Yeah, I saw those. Completely unacceptable.
matter, Premier, just what do you make of the
Yes, Simon.
vandalism to the... What do you make of the
As long as you're sure that you want to move off this to another, that's fine. What other issue?
What do you make of the vandalism to the Captain Cook monument?
Look, I've been waiting for someone to ask me a question about statues. I want to be really clear about this. I understand why many people are offended by some statues. It's a deeply emotional issue for many, many people. My focus is not so much on symbols, though. My focus when it comes to Indigenous affairs, Aboriginal justice and a shared pathway forward is action, not symbols, action. So it's wrong to be defacing things. It's wrong in some ways to be focused on symbols at the expense of being focused on direct action. And that's exactly what we need to do. And we can say that as proud Victorians, delivering the only treaty in our nation, delivering the only process that, in my judgment, will lead to a shared, equal journey to fairness and justice and a better country, one that is reconciled with its past and one that is unified for its future.